chances are, if you went to school in the United States or even some parts of Europe, you probably during group play at recess or something along those lines went into a bathroom with a bunch of your friends and summoned a spirit. You didn't know that, of course. You thought it was just a little childhood game called Bloody Mary. But if you stare into that mirror and say her name 3 times, they say she'll come to you. And depending upon who you hear the legend from, they may say 3 times, they may say 13, and you're supposed to see something in the mirror. Either you'll see her, the Bloody Mary. Some say you'll see the person you're going to marry. A lot of different legends with that one, but it all starts with Mary. Likewise, ever since the 1920s and 30s, if you walked into any bar, and I love a good bar, if you walk into any bar and you ask for a Bloody Mary, you will get a blood red, well, it's not really blood red, it's tomato sauce red drink. But it's all attributed to the same Mary. Now, the Bloody Mary usually has vodka, tomato juice, and it depends on who makes it. Sometimes they add horseradish or hot sauce or celery salt or what they call Worcestershire sauce. Depends on who actually makes it. But the point is that you're going to get a drink. Now, those of you who read the title are probably wondering to yourself, Queen, what does all this have to do with famous Aquarius? Bloody Mary is one of the most famous, if not infamous, Aquarius from history that you may or may not even heard of. It depends on if you're into history. But first, let me tell you, if you would like to get a reading done, please email me, and all of my information is underneath this video. So if you want to chat, if you would like to send me a gift, if you would like to send me a PayPal donation, if you would like to check out my Ask an Aquarius merchandise over on Teespring, all of that information is underneath this video, okay? And don't forget, stick around to the end of the video because I am going to read out two of my favorite comments from previous videos. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and pass this video on to somebody else who might want to hear about this crazy Aquarius. I'm sorry, this woman was a trap. I don't like to call people crazy because it is kind of dismissive, but I gotta call a spade a spade. And Bloody Mary was born on February the 18th. Bloody Mary, let me tell you, was the daughter, I want to make sure I say his name right. She was the daughter of King Henry VIII, okay? A Cancer, by the way. And you're getting ready to see, there's getting ready to be an Aquarius-Cancer conflict going on. So anyway, Bloody Mary, also known as Mary Tudor, was the daughter of this queen, and this king. The queen's name was Catherine of Aragon. Now, the reason how come King Henry VIII may sound very familiar to you is because he was a very popular king. He did a lot of awful things. Awful things. And Mary is his only child to survive from his first wife. Okay? So the king, during that time, Mary was born in what was February the 18th, 1516. Okay? So King Henry VIII and his wife were trying to have a male heir. But every time she got pregnant, it was either a girl, a miscarriage, or a stillborn. Or the baby died shortly after birth, according to the records. So she was only able to raise one child, Mary, to adulthood. Now, Mary, as a young girl, was an only child and a princess. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? So her father and mother doted on her. And for a very long time, she lived a very happy life. The only problem she had is that as she got older, she started to have some issues with her hormones. She started to have depression, and then after a while, she started to have very painful issues with her uterus. And as she got to, mature into a woman, this got worse and worse. And today we would know that she has endometriosis, which is basically what they called a uterine disorder. Back then, they didn't know. They called it her regular troubles, whatever that meant. So anyway, this young girl grew up to about 11 or 12, and everything was pretty much okay. She was actually educated, and she was groomed to be the next ruler. Since her father didn't have any male heirs, she would be the first female. Very Aquarius. She would be the first female to rule, because during that time, only men had ruled. They hadn't had a female queen yet. She was the very first one. So in that way, of course, she's very Aquarius in that way. Aquarius females have the tendency to be leaders, and Aquarius females also have the tendency to take on roles that are considered to be masculine. So this role was considered to be extremely masculine, and she was educated like a boy instead of, learning whatever, whatever debutante things they taught little girls. So the thing that happened that blew all of this up is her father. Remember, I told you he was a Cancer, and he was not a very pleasant Cancer. He was pleasant, she said, when she was younger, but as he got older and got more and more ambitious, and they say absolute power corrupts absolutely. As he got older, he became more and more of a dictator, more so than a king, which I guess those two roles are kind of similar. And he stopped listening to the Pope. He totally broke off from the church, stopped listening to the Pope, and declared himself the head of the English church. When he did that, and he did it for the reason he wanted to get rid of Mary's mother. He had been married to her for about 16 years at that point, and she had not produced a male heir. So he decided to take a younger woman, Anne Boleyn, who would have his male heir. Now, any of you who are familiar with history will know that this did not happen. He ended up having Anne beheaded. His third wife, Jane Seymour, is the one that actually gave birth to his son. Now, while all of this was going on, King Henry was he didn't care. He didn't care about what was going on with Mary. He didn't care how she felt about it. He didn't care about his next daughter, Elizabeth, the one that lived after that. He didn't care how she felt when he beheaded her mother. He didn't care. King Henry VIII was all about him. Okay, he had 6 different wives, had 2 of them beheaded for doing nothing at all. One of them, Anne Boleyn, was accused. Rumors floated around about her being a witch, and she bewitched the king and all this kind of stuff. So she was beheaded. And there was another one later on that was beheaded, So altogether, he had 6 wives, and the last wife survived him. So after he died, luckily for her, she was still alive. Anyway, so he finally gets that son that he wanted. He had already stripped his daughters of their title and were now treating them like they were illegitimate. His son is born, so now we have our heir. Well, the king passes over. The son takes over the throne, but the son dies very shortly. He was like 9 years old when he took the crown. And very shortly after, about 7 or 8 years later, he was dead. He had something and it killed him. So now Mary, who is now being treated like she's illegitimate, is like, you know what? That's my crown. That's my crown. That's my kingdom. And I'm rolling up. He had appointed, before he died, the young king had appointed another family member to be the ruler. And she took the crown. Mary, she was the queen for 9 days. Mary gathered up some troops, her supporters, a lot of people were supporting Mary because they had seen this whole thing transpire and they didn't think it was fair. So Mary gathered up some troops. Mary stormed the castle and took back her crown. And then this is when things really go awry. If you thought it was bad up until this point and all this Aquarius behavior going on, now she snaps. Mary takes the throne. She has her cousin, who was there in her place for 9 days, beheaded. And Mary goes on a reign of terror. Mary had about maybe 600 people executed, including the people that helped her father kick out her mother and label her as illegitimate. She had about 600 people beheaded, burnt at the stake. I mean, all of the above. And it wasn't just enemies. It was enemies, and it was people who were against her or people who helped her father. But it was also people who were against her religious beliefs. Because one of the things you have to remember is her father changed everything. He changed the religion from Catholicism to being Protestant, just so he could divorce the wives and break away from the church. But Mary and her mother were Catholic, and Mary was not willing to give up her faith. So she continued to be Catholic throughout the whole time, even though her father was, telling her, yelling at her, screaming at her, trying to make her sign all kinds of treaties saying she was illegitimate. Her sister, the little one, Elizabeth, was Protestant. She went along with the whole thing, but Mary stuck to her Catholic faith. So in those days, and still in some modern times, people would persecute you for your religion. So Mary basically killed anybody that insisted upon practicing as a Protestant. Anybody who stood against her, she had them labeled as a heretic, and she had them off with their heads. You often hear queens, fictional queen like the queen from Alice in Wonderland saying, "Off with your head." This 9 times out of 10 had to do with these murderous queens. Of course, Mary was the first. So basically, what happened? Well, she had a whole bunch of people murdered. She got married. She was unable to produce an heir because whatever was going on in her uterus was never properly treated. They kept calling it her usual troubles, and they probably just didn't know at that time period what it was. She kept trying to get pregnant. She got married to another a very wealthy monarch from Spain, and she kept trying to get pregnant. She never did. As a matter of fact, they said she had 2 phantom pregnancies. And I found this to be very interesting because remember when I talked about the fact that she is Aquarius, but she's Aquarius on the cusp of Pisces. February 18th, anything from the 15th to the 21st is the cusp of Pisces. And I've come to find that Aquarius who are on that cusp often have problems. And Mary had those problems, depression, and not feeling, she has some emotional problems, on top of that. And I've noticed that with Aquarius, not all of them, of course, that are born on that cusp, sometimes they have a really hard time with their emotional and mental health. And Mary had that in spades. She's constantly in pain because of her period, her cramping, all her life from 11 and up, things are crazy, so she had a lot of issues, and people said that she was very unhappy. Anyway, she kept trying to get pregnant. She had 2 phantom pregnancies. A phantom pregnancy is when you think that you're pregnant, but you're really not. So because you believe it, your body starts to respond as if it's really pregnant. But because there's no life inside of you, your uterus swells and then it just goes back down. After 9, 10, 11, 12 months of no baby coming out, everybody was like, we thought she was pregnant. So everybody thought she was, making it up. But now we know that phantom pregnancies really do happen to women all the time. Anyway, so basically she was unable to produce, and her husband really didn't love her in the first place. He just married her for the politics of it all. And so he rolled off into the sunset, never divorced her. He just kind of left and came back when he felt like it. And Mary laid down one day and died. She was only, I think, 42 or 43 years old when she passed over. And she died in 1558. So she didn't live very long. So my question every time I look up a famous Aquarius is this person very Aquarius? Mary was very Aquarius. First of all, she was very talked about. Aquarius are often gossiped about and talked about. Mary was always a hot topic of conversation because of all the turmoil that was going on because of her father. Okay? She had a very masculine characteristics, like a lot of Aquarius women do. She was very intelligent. They said that she could dance, she could speak a little bit of Greek, she knew Latin. I mean, she spoke like 4 languages. So Mary was really, really smart. And on top of everything else, like many Aquarius women, she was a leader. So Mary definitely fits the bill. And likewise, remember I talked about the emotional and mental health problems? We see that very commonly, like I said, on Aquarius who are born on that cusp. I think the problem is, if you think about it elementally, is too much water for Aquarius. So maybe we just kind of go mad. Some of us anyway. Some of us obviously deal with it very well. So that is our famous Aquarius for this week. Bloody Mary. So the next time you go into a bar, have a Bloody Mary. And let me know what you think of how it tastes. I don't think it sounds like it tastes good, so I'm not going to try it. All right, guys. So now we're going to talk about our 2 positive comments. The first one came from Regina G. Regina G said, congrats on 10,000. Today, just this morning, we hit 10,000 subscribers here at Ask an Aquarius. Isn't that something? I remember when it was 6 of us. It was me and 5 friends, you know, and that was it. Now there's 10,000 subscribers on this channel, and I want to thank you all. Next week, I'm going to actually thank you with a giveaway. So stay tuned. I'm going to give away 3 free readings. So I'm still working on the little contest we're going to do next week, and hopefully you, or you is going to win. The second one is from Aqua Amethyst Forest. Aqua said, true, even if I am not initially attracted to someone, if they make me laugh and I feel accepted, I find myself attracted to them. Yes, yes, yes. I was talking about this last week as I was saying that Aquarius like attractive lovers. That's very true. But if a person is not attractive and they have other qualities that we really love, and Aquarius, a lot of us anyway, if you look in the comment section, a lot of us will date that person anyway. And if they're not our type or not particularly attractive, but if they have those other characteristics that we love, we'll date them anyway. I love somebody who's funny. I think I've told you guys this before. I got jokes and I love talking to somebody else that does too. So that is very true, Aqua Amethyst, and thank you for your comment. Okay, guys, don't forget, come back soon because I have so much more to say. See you later.